to this Wednesday afternoon at 4:01. And to those of you that are watching in return, it is officially Traders Night. I'm looking for, are you excited? I'm excited. It is the next episode of Traders, and I am charged and ready. I cannot promise that there's going to be that much drama in this webinar, but I'm going to warm you up a little. I'm going to get you like somewhat there so you're ready for Traders later. This is actually just, Traders prequel. That's what it is.
To be
Uh,
fair, Cailean, we all know that you're the villain. You've got that whole aura, remember? I'm
that is
clearly,
absolutely
I'm,
true.
I'm
That is absolutely
clearly
true.
the
Yeah.
fake.
By the way, if any of you thought you were coming to a professional setup today, I'm really sad to disappoint you. We are expert, but not professional. Let us get started. Hey, everyone. It's really, really good to have you. Welcome to this webinar from Parent Kind and Parent Friendly Schools. I'm Cailean Cavallo. I'm head of schools at Parent Kind. I am faithfully joined by my brilliant partner, Rachel Smith, who is our service lead. What we're going to do in today's 45 minutes, and I promise we will make it swift, enjoyable, and incredibly actionable, is we are going to run you through how we can explore the new Ofsted framework and what that really means for parents specifically. Now, there's lots of interaction for you guys. So although I have you on video and audio here, you'll see that the chat panel is disabled on Zoom, but I do want to hear your voice. I'm going to give you some tools and tips on how to do this. For those of you that are watching this recording, you can't interact with us in real time. That's really weird. You need a time machine. So let's get stuck in. If you don't know us, we are Britain's biggest parent charity. We work with 24,000 parent groups and schools every day. We look after a couple of 100,000 parent volunteers, so we know how monstrous they can be. And we raise £140 million for schools like yours every single year to make sure we can bring opportunities to disadvantaged young people. If you are not currently getting money from us, drop us an email. We might have some money. We might owe you money as we fundraise on your behalf across loads of corporates in the UK. Go to parentkind.org to register your school. So we are Britain's biggest parent charity. What we want to do today is get your voice. So the way we're going to do that is you're going to scan this lovely QR code with your smartphone or a telephone device. If you are on a desktop, you can just go to menti.com, open this up in another tab away from your Zoom window, and pop in the 8 digits that are floating over my head like a halo. And what that will allow us to do is go into a confidential and anonymous space where, as colleagues and friends in the sector, we want to make sure we can get your thoughts on Ofsted frameworks, parents, and all things that we want to cover today. That's four of you in so far. I'll give you a little moment just to make sure the rest of you can just give us a scan, or indeed pop to your browser, pop in menti.com, pop in those 8 digits, and we'll get your voice throughout today's session. While you're doing that, let me just jump into Ofsted generally. Obviously, the new framework has launched. Hopefully, you have had time to review it. We certainly have, and we've been working with Ofsted for about 12 months now on that framework specifically. So we've been part of the chain there. And what you may or may not know is there's 21 references to parents in that framework, more than ever before. The DfE, Ofsted, influenced by ourselves, are asking for schools to do more and more with the parent community because they can just be so critical to success. One thing I often say is parents are hard to live with, but they're really impossible to succeed without. And we can see more and more evidence that really reinforces that parent participation can be really key to attendance, attainment, well-being, and overall humanity across our school ecosystems. So that's why Ofsted are really dialing up the temperature and what they expect from you when it comes to parents. And as Britain's biggest parent charity, we're in great shape to walk you through it. So thank you to those of you that have joined in. Give me one word to sum up your reaction when you hear the word Ofsted. In your telephone keypads, wherever you are, you'll see that pop up. Give me your single word emotion. Again, private and confidential, so you can swear, but I don't encourage it. Safeguarding is important, everyone. But what do you think of when you think of Ofsted? Rachel, what do you think of?
I would have to swear. I was Ofsteded 9 times in my teaching career, and none of all of them were that. Uh, there was a lot of that as well. Can I just say somebody new has just joined us? So if you didn't know, there's an at the top of the screen, there's a join at menti.com, and you can use the code to join in with this exercise of uselessness, the uselessness of Ofsted. which is what we're doing right now. I would say stressful, but also I don't know if accountable is the right word because that makes it seem like I wasn't accountable without them. But it certainly made me sharpen my game. And
Very, very fair. Very, very fair. I feel really weird having these words hovering around my head personally. I'm waiting for like a screen grab to end up on X at some point. But these are really interesting thoughts from you
already on
guys.
it, already on it.
I think we all know Ofsted don't always have the best reputation, but they are, of course, coming one way or the other. I want to get where you're at in the cycle. So again, on your telephone keypads, ladies and gents, where are you in your Ofsted cycle? Is it kind of who, their age is away, we're good? Is it we're in the window, Amber over here, or is it butt cheeks braced, they're on their way, you're expecting the call any second now? Give me where you're at in the cycle so we can see how panicked you might be. For our new joiner, if you just welcome, if you want to go to menti.com at the top, pop in that 8-digit code, you'll be able to join us in real time. Good. Okay, interesting. So lots of us are kind of in the window. Some of you are real preppers, which I love. Thank you. And we'll make sure you can get ahead of the game. So let me give a little bit of context on the changes to Ofsted. And there's some quite terrifying stats here that you may or may not have come across. From our national database, we hold the largest database of parents in the UK. We know there were 5 million formal parent complaints made to schools in the last year. So that represents one formal complaint per school per day. Now, if you think we're nailing it, we're not getting that many. Problem is, parents think they formally complained to you. You just missed it. They didn't quite follow your procedure. So that disconnect is leading to real challenge. We see from the 5,500 schools that we work with, 82% of school leaders have been abused by a parent in the last year. 68% have had threatening behavior. 1 in 10 physically assaulted. We know from our parent community, 1.4 million parents across the UK admit to weaponizing social media to cause you specific harm. It is getting really tense out there, and that may represent your parent community. So there's, naturally need for Ofsted to change because this tension is really mounting. The challenge with that is obviously Ofsted themselves get a lot of complaints. They're up to 15,000 formal complaints made every year now. That's a 25% uplift from last year. One of the key challenges with that is they only respond to 16% of them, 1% leading to an inspection. So that's quite a big chunk for many thousands of parents in that 84% that do not hear back from Ofsted on their complaint because they think they're telling on you. In addition, they do hear from parents when they're complaining. They don't hear from parents with parent view. All of you will know they run parent view in order to make sure they can get that critical stakeholders feedback on you prior and during your inspection. But the average participation rate is 23%. Just 23% of parents will respond to parent view. And I don't need to flirt with you all to diagnose what kind of parent likes to go back to Ofsted when parent view comes out. It can be a real mixed bag, but it's certainly not a representative one. Now, that's again another reason for Ofsted to change here. If we look at parents and their feedback, 3 in 5 parents feel that they are fobbed off by their school when they make a complaint. And part of that is coming from 87% of parents don't know how to complain. They just don't get it. So they just, escalate straight to the head teacher because whiteboard pens are missing. There's some real challenge in how to complain. But on the other side of it, 95% of teachers in the UK have never been formally trained on how to handle a parent complaint. So there's a lot of chaos, confusion, and madness where resources are being drained from schools. Lots of lawyer fees are coming in for schools to defend against complaints, but parents also feel fobbed off. It's kind of a lose-lose on both sides. And indeed, really critically, even Ofsted's own report shows that 51% don't trust Ofsted. So, all of this context is leading to change and indeed has influenced the new framework, as which I mentioned, there are 21 references to parents within. We believe that you are not able to meet standard if you have not engaged parents effectively and fully in all disciplines. We're going to break that down and move through it. So, if you haven't come across it, we at Parent Kind and Parent Friendly Schools have spent the last 5 years in a bunker, which is why Rachel and I are super happy to see you because it's nice to see daylight. What we've been doing over that time is crafting what is the perfect recipe for parent participation and thinking wider across everything you engage with your parents, hence, obviously, things that Ofsted will be looking at. And we've put together the blueprint framework. Now, the reason why this is helpful is we've already done all the heavy lifting. You're welcome. We've looked at the five key drivers that really make a difference in how you engage with your parents. And they're broken down by 25 initiatives, as you can see here. But we built 500 quantitative measures of how you engage, and we automatically measure them with you. Now, why all of this is important is we have worked with Ofsted on this. So as you get accredited or you work with our framework, you are automatically already ticking off your future inspectorate, evidencing what you need for Ofsted to make sure you've got good goals. We give away free tools, including our strategy generator. You want to write a 24-page school development plan in 4 minutes? Come and see us. We've got one for you right on our website. We'll print you out a personalized parent strategy to show exactly what you can do. We will point you with actions. We'll give you toolkits and resources, and we'll give you support to go and action them. We couldn't spoon feed it in more. We've built 673,000 variants of it. So every school gets something different from us, regardless of your demographic, your deprivation, your community, all of it is balanced on making it work. Hey, Belinda! Oh my God, it's Belinda! One of my favorites. Hey, Belinda, love you. Um, so the blueprint framework is here to help support you. That's why we do this. We spend 5 years with the DFE, Ofsted, Oxford University, 700 schools across the UK. We've cracked it. Come and take our goodness. It's free. That leads us to five key principles around the new framework. And Rachel is our resident expert, having long time suffered Ofsted with 9 inspectorates, 20 years in education leadership, and chief examiner for Pearson is here to help share a little bit of credibility on what we see in the framework that you need to pay attention to. Rachel, talk us through Keystone 1.
Well, that all of that would have credibility if Matt Battersby hadn't been a pupil in the lessons that I taught. But I'm not going to allow him to speak because he's not allowed off mute. Anyway, so one of the major keystones, and this goes across the scorecard, is the idea of safeguarding. You know that it's a yes/no decision within the framework. But what they talk about in terms of parents and safeguarding is establishing a culture where anybody can speak freely if there is an issue related to the safety of a young person, which is a really massively important culture to create because where there is a fear of reporting, there is obviously a danger to a child. What we would say is that, yes, it's brilliant to have that culture to identify concerns early, which is what they're talking to. But that culture is actually the foundation from which your parent partnership will grow. So when what I find with Ofsted is that they create a baseline from which yes, we should be achieving that, but could we achieve much more? And this is one of those moments. They've placed it in safeguarding. They've said they're the expert in their child. You should bring them in as that expert. You should be the expert in education, and together you should partner in order to be able to deliver the best for the people. That's the sentiment they've got. How can we then elevate that out of safeguarding? Ofsted's only concerned about the safeguarding element. We're going to pose the question of how can you elevate that sort of culture beyond? Cailean?
Hmm. So, what does an effective culture look like? This is critical in that safeguarding openness. What we know from our parent community is 62% of parents do not feel safe raising a concern with you. That's a national figure. They just don't believe you're going to do anything with it. So, very often they won't engage. So, your demonstration of what that culture looks like is really, really critical. One of the keystones that I found in working with the schools we have to date is your school leadership team and specifically your head vulnerable? Do they exhibit vulnerability where they don't seem like the generationalized trauma that parents can often have of their previous head teacher? They get to see someone who's like, do you know what? Actually, I'm really poor at maths, and actually, this is how I fix it. That level of vulnerability leads to a culture top down to make sure actually it's okay to be approachable, to be really human. Let me give another example. Your parent complaints policies on your website are a complete bane of my life. They're garbage, and I hate all of you. They are typically 17 pages pages. They are a literacy level of 17 or higher. You need an A level to read them. They're considered difficult. They're there to cover your butt. And I totally recognize that. But they're not there to help a parent. Actually, what can really help a parent is pop a little video of you on that same page on the website to go, do you know what? Thank you so much for raising feedback with us. My door is wide open. Like, I'm here. You can contact me here, here, here. Before you go in the complaints process, you're making it a human element. So you're not encouraging that keyboard warriorship because that 17-page complaints document incites them to go on AI and write you 9 pages of legalese and throw it back at you. Like, it's that level of you kind of set the tone. The question here is, how do you want to set the tone? How do you want to develop an effective culture? What would an inspector spot in that culture to demonstrate and see ways in which you're proactively reaching out and setting that tone? Does every parent feel safe to raise a safeguarding concern with you? If not, why not? How can you be more inclusive and accessible? And how might you take control of evidencing that culture? Again, measuring, getting a parent voice, getting feedback on it, publicizing your complaints, etc., showing your safeguarding flags and how quickly you deal with them. That kind of reporting and transparency, vulnerability builds that trust and that culture across your estate.
Can I just talk to that last one a little bit?
Please.
Um, because I think it's a mindset shift for people, which is I know from my experience, you feel a little bit of a victim of Ofsted. They come in and they bully you, and then they tell you what they think of you, and then they leave, and you feel a little bit like you've been rolled over by a tractor. The truth of the matter is that you can take control of the situation because what the principle is what gets measured gets done. And that's the principle that they're working for. Whatever you're measuring is getting done. So if you can define the evidence yourself and you can start to consider how would we, if they asked us, show them that we've got a culture where our parents can speak up and keep our children safe, what are those bits of insight that we can present to them that says we have this impact? And then the leadership has the vision to tell the inspector how to see it, and that changes the power dynamic.
Yeah, indeed. Excellent. Let's get your voice on this team. So, what I put on your telephone keypads is a strongly disagree, which is a 1, right the way through to a strongly agree 10. Give me where you're at as a school. Again, confidential anonymous. For those of you that have joined me a little late, that's absolutely fine. Just right at the top of my page here, go to menti.com, pop in those 8 digits. You'll be able to join me in real time and give your thoughts. Many of you have done this already, which is fabulous. So, how much do you disagree, strongly agree with this about building that positive culture of school? Do you feel you've got clear values that are part of everything the school does? Would everyone in your school team know what they are? Would your parents know what those values are? Is there a constant emphasis on positive and respectful discourse? How do we really exhibit that? Do you really feel that all members of your team are exhibiting that all of the time? Is there compassion under pressure? Workloads are insane in schools. I don't know how any of you do it. I truly don't. But and can we maintain compassion in that, particularly when a parent is, bringing worry and fear right to your face? Is there a constant celebration and positive news stories? We often kind of point to parents and they're not really recognizing when we do really great things. Typically, we don't start that. Do you recognize your parents for the brilliance they do? Whether it's volunteering or supporting or doing great learning at home or actually delivering a complaint and making a change at your school for the better. How do we celebrate that and set that tone that then incites their response to do the same? And lastly, is there a thoughtfully designed and decorated environment? I know this might sound simple, but the anxiety that parents will feel coming through your school gates is astronomical. A child said something to them last night. They had they've talked about it with their partner over dinner. They had a stress dream on it. They've driven in. They're anxiously thinking about it. Those big pointy fences and your safeguarding rules are a real source of anxiety. How do we really make sure that's thoughtful? Again, a quick video on your socials that just helps show the POV, the point of view from the school gates right to the head teacher's office or wherever you want them to be helps lower their anxiety fantastically to make sure they're more prepared and they can really handle it. All right,
Bantok, just let's pause there a minute. Bantok, who I did a silver award for yesterday, who smashed it, they're epic. But they have a hub that is specifically set aside for parents, which isn't available to some schools, but it's a possibility. And they have sofas in there, and they sit at right angles. They have a coffee machine, and they serve biscuits. And what that does is reduce that level of fear and past trauma of having walked into a school, because
yeah.
we basically all bring our past history to that situation.
Yeah, and it's really simple things like biscuits. That'll
Biscuit.
make a difference for your evidence for Ofsted. It's a tonal cultural setting of prioritizing that stakeholder. Interesting results from all of you here. We've got a little bit of a spectrum going on, which is cool. But actually, I'm really happy to hear that values are really so strong. That's fabulous. Keep them evidenced. Given that many of you have it, what makes you different? Again, would your parents really articulate those back? That's really, really interesting results. More work for us to do on the constant celebration and positive stories. That can be a really tricky place, particularly if your parents have already disengaged from your communications, which the majority of parents have, because sometimes schools can be micromanagers. You send them lots of communications with lots of demands and they start to tune out. How can you re-engage them? Things like celebration, do you have an awards evening? Do you make sure you do your parents' evening in a neutral location and make that more of a social affair? Do you make it accessible online so people can join it? Lots of ways in which you can build on that. All right, let's move on to keystone number two. And if it wasn't already clear, you have five of these. So we will finish up in 25 minutes time. We want to think about co-design inclusion and send support as another framework moment. Rachel, give us your expertise here.
So, to be fair, this has always been the case. And if you're a Senko, you'll know this. You will know that there is has always been a requirement annually for parents to be invited in to work with you to put together a plan for the child. Now it's essentially been placed into Ofsted as given the fancy name of co-design. But again, this is a baseline moment. I think obviously if you get a send parent involved in the plan for their child, you're going to reduce a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the stress and worry that those parents feel. But what about co-designing beyond that? One of my favourite stories that I had from a school was from Swavesey Village College in Cambridgeshire, who co-designed their phone policy with their parents. So they invited them in and they didn't present the solution, they presented the problem. We have a problem with children having phones out in the lesson. We have a problem with social media and the effects on children's mental health. What should we do? And the parents themselves said, ban them. Just ban them. Don't let them in. And because it came from the parents and the solution didn't come from the school, the parents were on side in the delivery of that. That's co-design, and it's co-design beyond inclusion and send, which should be the baseline expectation. And again, elevating you beyond that.
Mm. Thank you, Rachel. A quick reminder, for those of you that are on Menti, you can go to the Q&A panel. There's a little Q&A panel there. You can pop your little question in. Again, confidential anonymous, but this is me want us to pick us up in real time to prove that Rachel and I aren't faking this. You're very welcome to test us with a question. Let's get your thoughts while you're on Menti. How much does your school encourage genuine co-design with parents? So this is a pin the tail on the donkey moment. So along the y-axis, along the side here, we've got sorry, I'll move my head. What percentage of your parents do you send an invitation to? And then along the x-axis, along the bottom here, what percentage is really personalized and sincere in that message? Are you doing a kind of mass mail out, or are you really taking your time to be personal and very genuine and sincere in that? Pop where you think your school is on this chart. Just generally, what percentage of parents are you reaching invitations to do co-design, and how personalized and sincere is that opportunity and message of that invitation?
Can I
Uh,
talk a little to the implied message behind this question? Because
please.
I think we need to be blatantly and open about it. I'm quite cynical. I was a secondary school teacher for 20 years. It's no surprise. So what happened, what I'm saying here is that when I was a secondary school teacher, I wanted my parents 300 miles away so I could get on with my job. I now work for Parent Kind, so I have to change that philosophy. So I would send out invitations that were highly inconvenient for the parent and rather terse in their tone. And so I would probably be down in the very bottom corner at 0% if I'm honest. So that is the implied meaning behind this question. So how sincerely and how honestly do you invite parents in for a good bit of co-design?
Yeah, and there's a good bit of spectrum amongst us. Lots of you in the top left here that are kind of doing the mass mailing. Everyone's getting an invitation, but it's maybe quite generic. Some of you that are really doing that in a personalized way, which is fabulous, really, really good evidence. Some of you that are maybe not doing that quite as much, which is very honest, and I appreciate that. If we think about this in more detail, again, thinking about that co-design, is this only about the gathering of effective feedback from parents? Our answer is no. Again, to Rachel's good example, do you have a parent forum set up? How do you help parents make key strategic decisions? How much do we report back to parents to help inform them? Typically, if they feel like they've co-owned the decision, they're much more likely to accept it. Obviously, that's true for most realms, but are we really taking that effort to jump in? What about the accessibility and inclusivity of those comms to help make sure parents can understand their child's needs? Again, thinking about literacy levels, thinking about timing of the communication delivery, thinking about overwhelm of it. Doing the same thing over and over obviously has the same impact. What can you do that's really different to really engage? For instance, we've seen great examples of parent of schools that will host a parent forum in Acosta, where they would just, buy coffees for everyone in order to get them there and have that conversation. You can celebrate it. We built a new guide with the National Governors Association in order to help with parent governor recruitment. We've got guides to help with how you can motivate and incentivize your parents to volunteer for you under our dime. Again, lots of ways we can help you there, but really think about how is your partnership with parents and the signposting to additional support from a Sendco point of view specifically? Do you really co-design with parents? And critically to Ofsted, how can you evidence that? How can you control that evidence and get ahead of it now before we get to squeaky bum time when you get the call? Make sure you've got that really backed up. Rachel.
Well, that bottom one is really important, I think, because what we've found out from our parenting language is that 20% of our parents who have send children also have send themselves, which is actually quite a significant number. So when we think we're helping and we offer them a phone number or an email and we say, here's the support you need, and we think, job done, tick box ticked, that parent then does not have the necessary skills or literacy in order to action the referral required to get that support. So I'm sure you are aware of that. So how can you go that one step further to really partner with them and break down what we know to be horrible bureaucratic barriers to getting the support that most young people need? And I think this is where trust is built and where a sense of belief in you is built. Because if you're going, yeah, it's really hard. Let me help you. I can do this, this, and this, and you break down that barrier for that parent, you will win their loyalty for life. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And they will
Yeah.
have massively positive testimonials that you can then present as evidence to your inspector.
Yeah, 8.6 million parents in the UK are requesting send assessment for their child. 8.6 million. That's a third of parents that either have a child with send or believe that they have send and are waiting for schools and assessments to do something with it. It is absolutely there. So that inclusion is for the, quickly going to move to the majority soon. Okay, let's move on to keystone number three. Talk to us about this, Rach.
So I think this is shocking, but this is actually only in the early years toolkit for all of you that are not in early years, so have who have children who are actually toilet trained, you can all switch off, or should you? Because realistically, the assumption is that the parents are there to bring their child to school. And obviously, in early years, that's crucial because the parent has to physically bring them to school, drop them at the school gate, etc. And the assumption is after that, the child can do it for themselves. But we all know, I haven't ever been a parent, by the way. I've only ever had Labradors and they kind of do anything for food. But I've been told that you have to spend a little bit of emotional capital sometimes to get the kids into the school door, that you have to persuade them, you have to cajole them, you have to sometimes find them their pants so they can put them on before they leave. So in actual fact, yes, attendance and behaviour is crucial with parents in the early years, but I would say I was a secondary school teacher and my year 11 still needed their mum sometimes to bring them in. So
We certainly see that attendance is a key problem for our schools, but also for our parents. 50%, 50% of parents believe that daily attendance at school is not essential. We know that 23% of children in the UK are persistently absent, and 1 in 10 misses more school than they attend. I've yet to come across a school who has told me that they are absolutely cool on attendance and it's not a problem. Like it is really, really becoming a critical issue. To Rachel's good point, How do we make sure that we can get our parents to spend that emotional capital getting their kid to school? Because when it feels difficult in the morning and the kid says no, actually, too often the parents already disillusioned with the school themselves, so they don't spend it and they, navigate some other form of non-attendance. One thing I do want to credit UK schools with is 90% of parents believe that their school takes attendance seriously. So although they don't believe it's essential, they know that you kick butt when it comes to attendance not being there. We want to make sure that, again, you've got the evidence for Ofsted that partnership takes place. How do we make sure we're driving attendance? With the 700 schools we've worked with since April this year, in primary schools, we've been able to raise attendance by 17%, in secondary schools by as much as 25%. Because as soon as we get the parent on side, quickly changes attendance as the first key measure once they understand why they're sending them to school and they feel like there's a trusted bond with you. So, with that in mind, my question to you on your telephone keypads, again, type in a response. What do you think would persuade a parent to spend that emotional capital for your school? And let's keep it on family issues, behavior, and attendance. What do you think is really needed here? What can a school do to help convince parents to do that? Give me like a sentence on your telephone keypads. They'll pop up here again, confidentially and anonymously. Again, on your Mentipad as well, if you want to go to the Q&A section, you're very welcome to ask us a question, challenge us, probe us, blackmail us. You can do any of those things. But we want to make sure that you're able to ask us in real time too.
I always
Do
like to envision this as a jar, Cailean, that a parent's got that's full up with pound coins. And basically they're spending like 10 quid of those pound coins to send their kid to school. But if they kept the kid away from school,
Mm,
they would fill their jar up with £10. And it's almost that visual that I have in my head when I'm thinking of this. And what
yeah.
it is, why would they spend that on a quite unpopular decision for some young kids, especially school refusers, especially kids who are bullied at school, especially kids who don't necessarily fit the popular, you know, group that easily.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's some really great suggestions you guys have got on the screen here. Can I give you one as well that is my favorite? A school that was really struggling with attendance. I mean, like really like getting their butt kicked with it. Implemented a policy where they called the parent every night, which is a huge resource intensivity. But what they would do is they call the parent and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry your child missed today." Non-judgmental. And they would say, "What they missed today was this, this, and this. That's what they missed from the class teacher or the tutor." They'd say, "Oh, they missed this today, but don't worry, we're going to catch them up. Tomorrow, what we're going to cover is this, this, and this." And what it enabled was this kind of firstly non-judgmental, because you don't want to make that void too big for the parent returning the child or indeed the child returning. And indeed, it gave it like a little bit of FOMO in terms of that fear of missing out. What is it the kid's going to do? You don't want to miss out on that. And I think actually some of the good points here about making it fun or making it feel like it's interesting, you can make it quite facilitative. So rather than berating the parent to say you really need to get your child to school, actually it's making it more like, hey, the party's happening over here and they missed it. That's okay, but you're attracting them with magnetism rather than with discipline.
That also actually acknowledges the psychological safety that because a child often goes into extended absence because they're afraid that they've missed something. So if you're
Mm.
telling them what they've missed and then what they're going to be doing the next day, it really removes that anxiety and fear from the young person, and will probably make the persuasion easier for the parent on the other side. So I think it's a really smart. Um,
Agreed. Lots of good ones on here. I'm trusting that you're all reading these. The only other one I'll add is a lot of good statistics are out there, particularly from the Education Endowment Foundation, which show if your child attends school more, they're going to get higher grades. They're going to have better life outcomes. They're going to have a higher salary. The current attendance of your child would mean they get this. If they attend a little bit more, they're going to get that. And there's a really easy equation, again, pulled from that national research, you can apply to the parent it's the best thing for your kids' life outcomes if they come to school, as well as some of the other brilliant ones that you popped in here. Okay, let's move on to thinking about family-centered attendance and behavior with some of these questions. So, does the quality of this good environment through the eyes of the parent inspire trust? Have you really evaluated your communication to see if the tone and content really appeals? I quickly mentioned this before, but we see on average the parent will get 10 communications a week from a school. They'll come in every different flavor and format. They're all demanding something, and typically the parent will feel micromanaged. And if you don't get the response you want, you send 10 more. So it becomes overwhelming for the parent and they can kind of disengage. Again, really take an honest look at your communications. In every school I've ever worked with, obviously many of their school team are also parents. So weirdly, as a parent, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, my kid's school does that. I suffer that as a parent, and then I do it as a school." It's like a really weird paradox, but that's one I'd really, really want you to reflect on. Lastly, do you support learning in the home, and does it reduce conflict and increase positivity around schooling? 45% of parents nationally do zero forms of learning at home. No added curriculum, no homework help, because they don't believe you've been clear enough with them on how to do it. So some of it's building parent skills, some of it's updating on curriculum, some of it's just giving them tips and advice of how they can help their child. But half your parents are not doing any form of extending the classroom. Do you really make sure that you can support that positively to not only make sure you can raise attainment, but ensure that that parent has more trust in you too? Any
And
final thoughts on this one, Rach?
yeah, I don't want to skip over the school environment because it's actually quite massive because it's
Mm.
especially for parents who value the safety of their child and care most about their genuine well-being, which is probably all parents. It's simple things like the reports that the child gives them of what it's like to go to the toilet at a school, which is strangely powerful for a parent as to whether they'll send or not. So if there is bullying in the toilets or vaping in the toilets or smoking in the toilets, or if there's a genuinely unpleasant environment around there, I can tell you that that distresses the parent more than anything. If there is nowhere safe, in one of the schools I used to work at, there was a separate year seven playground to the rest of the school so that they didn't feel so threatened by the older young people. So that again gives the parent a sense of security that their child is safe and free from some of the potential bullying. So really, it's hard because I used to work in a school and I used to get numbed to what a school was like, but walk
Mm.
around with that sort of primal fight flight mode that a parent goes in and see what it is that they're protecting them from in your school environment.
I think that's fab. Rach, we've got a question from the audience. Oh my good godness. Look at
Oh
this.
no.
Having realized for an assembly that my students only spend 14% of their year at school, since they spend more time elsewhere, probably at home, how do we find out what they do at home? What's your advice, Rach?
Ask them. No, I'm joking. So, it is about getting to know them though, and in a secondary school, that feels harder than in a primary school. As an English teacher, I was blessed with getting to know my students much more because I saw them so often, and I also got to know them more because they wrote about their life when they were writing to me. So I got to know those things. In a primary school, again, the reason that they succeed probably a little bit easier than secondary is because they have a single point of contact, a teacher that sees them all of the time. Oh, but hang on, so does a secondary school. They have a form tutor. And every school that I've worked with where they feel they know their families and know their young people well, is where they've got that single point of contact. And it also reduces the escalation of complaints as well, weirdly, because they build a relationship with that one point. So, how do you find out? That's possibly one way.
Excellent. Thank you, Rach. And thank you for the question. Do send any more through. Let's move on to keystone number 4. Talk us through this one, Rach.
Yeah, this one's interesting because it puts and a welcome for us is that it puts all the emphasis on the leadership within a school to make this work. Whereas again, cynical, please tell I've been out of education for 8 years, it's likely changed. But certain initiatives would get siloed to somebody, given as a point 0.5 responsibility point to X person, and off they went and did lots of little initiatives, and when they left, all those initiatives stopped. What this means is that it's on the senior team to know what is happening in order to bring that parent participation into the forefront of the minds and to make the best use of parents' knowledge of their children, which is my favorite thing that Ofsted have done, and I said it to their faces. I can't believe I said something positive to an Ofsted inspector, but I did. I said to them, I am so grateful that you have recognised that parents have an expertise in the child that schools could benefit from, and that's what's premised in this keystone.
Mm.
One of the more important, I think.
I find too many schools, particularly primary, if you allow me to bully you for a second, believe that standing in the schoolyard on pick up and drop off times is sufficient in order to be kind of visible and there for parents to come and approach. What we know from our parent community is they don't want to do that. It's not the best environment. They've got other things on their plate. So actually just, bare presence alone isn't a sufficient leadership visibility. We have to go a little bit further. They have to understand that vulnerability. They have to make sure that they're with you. So on your telephone keypads, do you have a senior member of the team who holds responsibility for parent partnerships? And I mean formally, it's in their job spec. They are about parent participation at their school. They are measured on parent participation. It's being drafted in some way. You'll see on my lovely little fancy chart coming through, I've just mapped this alongside what you put with in the Ofsted window. So I can see how and where you're at with that. Interesting. So two of you have got, sorry, three of you have got a parent participation lead that's specifically formalized. Lots of you do not. For reference, only 16% of schools in the UK have a parent participation lead that is formalized in a job spec for whether they be SMT or not. And one of the real criticalities of this, and if you don't have this, I'd highly recommend it, is that we know from when we go and assess schools through our accreditation, if they do not have a leader in place, they on average get a score of 48%. For schools that do have a leader in place, they get a score of 85%. Now that's going from like bronze to gold, and the difference is just having someone dedicated at SMT for parent participation with a spec and some measures. Again, if you don't have that, if you go to parentfriendlyschools.org, we have a role description generator for free that's specific for your school, so you can go and designate that to yourself or someone else to make sure you can start making it a priority. Again, another piece of quite critical evidence that you can give to Ofsted to show that this is a priority for your leadership. Rachel.
The most important question I would ask here is, would everyone in the school know if I went up and asked them? So there's okay having that specific responsibility. It's brilliant to have a paper-based role description in place that you can present to someone. But if
Mm.
I went to classroom 1B and asked the teacher inside, who is your parent participation lead, would they be able to tell me? A, and would they be able to tell me what the current focus is in building that parent partnership? If the answer is no, then the leadership is still siloed. Siloed now in senior leadership, brilliant, but still not resonant across the whole staff. And I think leadership isn't about doing it. Leadership is getting other people to follow you and do it too. So I think that's implied in this keystone.
Indeed. And if for the 40% of you that do have a senior leader that's responsible for parent participation, do you have a governor? That's the kind of next advanced step, which is actually a governor that's specifically designated with parent participation as a measure, as an area of governance, can be a really critical next step. Again, we've worked with the National Governance Association to help with that, so we can give you some guidance. Okay, we've got a few minutes left, guys. So let's rattle through on to keystone number 5. Rachel, walk us through this.
Well, this one's quite simple, which is the parent voice, which is what this is all about, is comes across the whole scorecard now. Now you know that Ofsted have parent view, and that parent view will require the parents to give opinion on each of these things. But if where they can't get that from parent view, they will expect to be able to speak to parents to be able to hear that voice. So this is one of those places where you really want to take charge of the evidence and take charge of the measures so that you can be able to say to them, I have spoken to my parents about these specific issues, and here it is what they say. Because it is one of the reasons that Ofsted have stepped in to the parent space is that parents feel unheard, parents feel ignored, fobbed off. So what they don't want schools to be doing now is just broadcasting to their schools. They want a two-way conversation and for you to hear and action and potentially co-design, let's throw that word in again, across each of these facets of the scorecard.
Indeed. So on your telephone keypads, when you ask for feedback from your parents, give me again on that 1 to 10 scale, strongly disagree, strongly agree. Do you hear from more than 50% of your parents when you run out a survey? Do you ensure you learn which groups of parents are promoters, detractors, or passives? Who are your real celebrators? Who are the ones that are really causing trouble? Who are those that kind of feel passive in between? And do you know how parents will respond to your Ofsted view questions? Do you have sight of that or confidence in that before it actually happens? Give me your kind of views on this, guys. Sorry, the question's between 1 and 5. Apologies. So 1 is strongly disagree, 5 is strongly agree. Give me your thoughts here. Interesting results so far. That's half of you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've got a real spectrum. Some of you are like all day. Some of you are like never heard of it. That's that's really cool. I'll try and cover both here because there's a really interesting mix here. Not very many of you have got more than 50% of your parents. I think it would be fair to say that 50% is probably the minimum you should be shouting for. We've seen as much as 90% response rates. If you send out an annual parent survey, the average across the UK is actually 30%. So if you're doing better than 30%, good, but we want to help you get a bit higher than that. And again, Ofsted's parent view only attains 23% on average. In terms of knowing who your promoters, detractors, and passives are, it can make a big difference, particularly if you understand why. Rachel and I supported a school recently where we found their detractors were mainly in their black mum estate. Actually, they had a real challenge, and we could diagnose what that looked like from their results so they could take action and do something different in their approach to appeal to a community they were really kind of missing. So we've covered 5 keystones on the Ofsted framework. Let me talk a little bit more about how we can help you action these. So again, we are Britain's biggest parent charity. We've got our Parent Friendly Schools accreditation. So if you want us to come and diagnose where you're at and actually look under the hood, see where you've got real areas to celebrate and evidence for Ofsted, but also help you with some areas that might be burning hot garbage fires, we can do that and we can give you a strategy and the toolkits to help you with it. If you go to our website, there is 15 hours of free CPLD for every single staff member at your school available and open from us to help you start really building the capability in parent participation. Specifically on that last keystone, if you haven't seen it already, do go check out Parenting Language. So that is a service that's free from us to parents in order to help them discover more about their parenting. It just so happens we've snuck your annual satisfaction survey and Ofsted's parent view in there. So if you want to get ahead of your Ofsted inspection and know what parent views are going to say in parent view, you can actually point them here and it will give it. It's a 10-minute question. And again, it's not about you, it's about them. The parent gets over 1 billion possibilities to help understand their parenting approach. And they get to see what mix of languages they use. They get a video, a dashboard, and a digital magazine that's fully tailored to them, 1 in 1 billion outputs. What we provide to the school, now there is a small charge to this, typically £250 to £500, depending on the size of your school, is we will come and spend an hour articulating those results to you so we can see what kind of parent languages are being used at your school, where you might have detractors, where there might be certain communities of parents that you're missing that actually we could do with really working with. Typically, our average is we get a 56% response rate when we run this in a school, because again, it's about the parent and they get something from it. Rather than being a survey where it's all about you, we can get much, much higher than that. So it could really help demonstrate parent voice, help you evidence for Ofsted, and get ahead of actions in your next inspectorate. Again, we can help with that if you need it. So I mentioned lots of other tools and capabilities and free things that we have as a charity. This is not a profitable venture for us. We just need to cover costs where we do. So you can reach out to our team where you need it. On your telephone keypads, imagine someone's too scared to ask a question. What question might they ask? We've covered lots of ground in today's webinar here on Ofsted, on the 5 keystones that are taking in attendance, safeguarding, inclusion and co-design. We've looked at how you enable parent voice. We've looked at leadership in the environment. Any questions that you've got that we can really pool together? What do you think someone on the call might want to know, or indeed someone who is watching back the recording? Pop them just into your telephone keypad. I'll pick them up in real time and I will send you off to traitors very, very shortly to make sure you can see who the hell's going to get banished tonight. I am absolutely behind Matt.
I
I
want
think it's going to be Matt.
no, I want Harriet. I want Harriet to ask her questions.
Oh, yes, that's going to be so good.
Um,
Oh, spoiler alert.
Sorry,
Um,
if you haven't
okay,
watched
we
it.
will. I can see another question that has come through. Thank you so very much. Let's bring that up. So, in response to the previous question, you already answered this, Rach. After long holidays, like 2 weeks, we send a feedback form to parents to complete about a child's holiday
Ooh.
experience. Gives triggers for FT and alerts of issues. What do you think of that?
I think that's brilliant. I would.
Hmm.
I think that's awesome because, especially on a safeguarding level, because you'll get real flags really quick. So that's immense.
I love it. Yeah, definitely go and ask. I think that's a really good call. What
Mm.
about this question, Rach? What if parents co-designing policies, they come up with ideas we don't want them to say? Very honest.
Um, I mean, there's very little I wouldn't say. Those that know me know that that's the case. So I'm a massive fan of a forum where everyone gets to say what they want, but not everything is accepted into the final design. So it's as with anything when you're designing by committee, obviously there's going to be stuff there that turns your nice horse into a zebra and your donkey into a camel. So what I would strongly suggest it's in the negotiation, it's in the listening, it's in the reporting back what you did listen to and why, and what didn't make it and why, so that you are very explicit in how that co-design influenced your final decision making. Because it's not
Mm,
that they expect you to do every idea that they come up with. They just would like you to hear them and then to treat them seriously and then to offer a full discourse on how that decision was made.
yeah.
It's how we all get buy-in, right?
I totally agree. The why is really critical, just to highlight what Rachel's saying there, because she's absolutely right. What we tend to find is, again, from our data, parents don't understand how schools work. They just don't understand the mechanics of what it's like. Typically, they'll come up with a mad idea that seems super absurd. As soon as you kind of break it down and start to speak to how that couldn't really be operationalized or wouldn't be fair and inclusive for everyone, or as soon as you give that why, typically it disarms them immediately and they can sometimes feel a bit embarrassed, actually. You've got to make sure it's quite a safe space. Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for your questions, everyone. I'm going to give you some treats here. Oh my good gosh, look at this. I'm going to have to move my butt out the way. So, over here, you can go and scan me on this side in order to go and get the blueprint that I showed earlier. If you want to go and see all the ways in which you can magic up a brand new parent strategy as part of your Ofsted evidence, you can click here. If you go on this one and scan in the middle here, you can get sign up to our hub, which is a free resource, which has got hundreds of policies, toolkits, and all of our CPLD training for free. So you can get that little scan check with your staff and start upskilling with certifications. And then the last one, right over on the right-hand side there, if you want to see how much of a monstrous parent you are and you want to get your dashboard video and magazine and see what our Ofsted Parent View makeover looks like, you can scan that one on the end, and that'll take you right through our parenting language system. So you can see what kind of parent you are and see what that experience would be like for your parents. Guys, we are Parent Kind. We are Britain's biggest parent charity. We are here to help you make this difference. I'm so grateful that you've joined us today. Thank you. Rachel and I are really, really happy to help power up. So if you need us from here, literally just yell. We are on hand to help make sure you can power up your parent participation. Thank you so much for joining. Enjoy traders. See you next time, everyone. Bye, guys. Thank you.